Good afternoon and welcome to our main afternoon bulletin here on Qnews. I'm Mark Summers and let's start with the latest developments in Gaza. Israeli strikes on Gaza have killed dozens today as talks continue over a possible US-brokered ceasefire to end the war. Gaza's health ministry says several Palestinians were killed and others injured after an Israeli strike hit the Mawasi area of Qnews. Families gathered at Nasser hospitals on Thursday to mourn the victims. Meanwhile, Hamas is demanding guarantees that a new US ceasefire proposal will end the war. Israeli officials say a deal is within reach 21 months into the conflict. Despite negotiations, Israeli strikes killed at least 59 people across Gaza today. A UN expert has urged an arms embargo on Israel, accusing it of committing one of the cruelest genocides in modern history. UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese on Thursday called for states to impose an arms embargo and sever trade ties with Israel, accusing it of carrying out an apocalyptic campaign in Gaza. Her remarks at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva received strong applause. Israel rejected previous genocide allegations, saying it acts in self-defense. Its delegate was absent, following a policy of disengagement with what it calls a biased council. Albanese's report also listed over 60 companies allegedly supporting Israel's actions. Thailand has pledged new financial support to help Palestinians in Gaza, announcing a $50,000 contribution to UNRWA. Thailand announced the $50,000 donation to UNRWA's 2025 emergency appeal aimed at providing humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza. The announcement was made during a ceremony in Amman, where Thailand's ambassador to Jordan said the contribution underscores Thailand's commitment to supporting the Palestinian people and their right to live with dignity. UNRWA continues to call for urgent assistance as conditions worsen in Gaza. Israel has ordered Palestinians in parts of Gaza City to evacuate immediately, declaring the area a dangerous combat zone. The Israeli Occupation Army has warned residents in 5 residential blocks in Gaza City's Al-Tufa and Al-Daraj neighborhoods to evacuate at once. Army spokesperson Avichai Adurei urged civilians to move southward toward Al-Mawasi, labeling the area a dangerous combat zone. Warning was issued alongside a map showing evacuation zones marked in red. Thousands of Palestinians now face renewed displacement amid ongoing Israeli military operations. Gaza's Interior Ministry has warned residents against cooperating with a US-based organization it described as illegitimate. The Palestinian Ministry of Interior has cautioned the public against any dealings with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and its agents. In a statement posted on the official Facebook page, the ministry urged residents to avoid all direct or indirect cooperation with the US-based group, both inside and outside of Gaza, under any circumstances. Authorities did not provide any details, but stressed the warning aims to protect national security. UN Women says women in Gaza are facing severe food insecurity and worsening conditions as the war continues. The regional director of UN Women has warned that women in Gaza are experiencing extreme food insecurity and suffering from the collapse of the healthcare system. In press remarks, he noted that the number of widows in Gaza has doubled due to Israel's ongoing war. He called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and stressed the urgent need for unrestricted humanitarian aid to enter the Strip to alleviate the growing crisis. UNRWA is asking for safe and dignified aid delivery in Gaza and demanding an investigation into recent attacks on aid centers. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has called for humanitarian aid in Gaza to be delivered safely with dignity and accessible to all residents. The agency also demanded an investigation into the targeting of Palestinians at aid distribution centers, where several deadly attacks have been reported. UNRWA emphasized that protecting civilians and ensuring aid reaches those in need must be a top priority amid the ongoing conflict. An Israeli report says pilots returning from missions against Iran dropped leftover munitions on Gaza during the recent conflict. A new report from Israeli newspaper Mariv has revealed that Israeli pilots returning from air defense operations against Iran were permitted to drop unused munitions on the Gaza Strip. The aircraft, tasked with intercepting Iranian missiles and drones during the 12-day war, were equipped with both air-to-air and air-to-ground missiles. The disclosure raises fresh concerns about the escalation of attacks on Gaza amid Israel's broader regional operations. Gaza is enduring some of its bloodiest moments yet as Israel's military expands its operations in the northern parts of the enclave. Dozens of Palestinians have been killed and wounded in the past 24 hours alone, with strikes targeting densely populated areas and those seeking humanitarian aid.
The Israeli occupation army's latest escalation has pushed Gaza deeper into humanitarian catastrophe. In the last day, more than 100 Palestinians have been killed as strikes hit neighborhoods across the Strip. The civil defense in Gaza reported dozens of fatalities following airstrikes on residential homes in Al Zaytun neighborhood. Bombardments also targeted homes and tents, sheltering displaced families in Qnews in the south, and an UNRWA school hosting evacuees in Al Maghazi camp in central Gaza. The bloodshed intensified after Israel announced it was expanding ground operations in the north, redeploying its 98th Division to support what it described as a ground maneuver. Eastern areas of Gaza City, including Al Zaytun, Shuja'iyya, Al Tufa, and Al Sabra, have come under relentless bombardment. In a particularly alarming development, Israeli forces continued striking Palestinians waiting for food assistance near distribution centers coordinated under a U.S.-Israeli mechanism. Dozens were killed near 8 points between the Netzarim Junction and Gaza Valley Bridge, as well as in northwest Palestinian side of Rafah and other locations. Israeli soldiers and officers have admitted receiving orders to open fire on unarmed crowds to disperse them, even when no immediate threat was present. This admission has fueled accusations of systematic targeting of civilians. As the strikes continue, Gaza faces an unending cycle of death and destruction, pushing its people closer to what many describe as collective annihilation.
A Palestinian artist in East Jerusalem is keeping traditional puppet theatre alive, inspiring children beyond digital screens. In a small East Jerusalem workshop, 61-year-old puppet maker Abed Salam Abdo transforms recycled materials into lively characters for children's theatre. Abdo says puppetry is his world and a vital way to spark imagination, especially as technology dominates young lives. His latest show, Alice in Wonderland, attracted enthusiastic audiences. Despite challenges, Abdo and theatre directors like Emir Khalil believe puppet theatre has the power to let children live stories in ways that no screen can.
مشان يشتغل دوما لازم يكون عندك عدة، لأنه في أشياء بحاجة لمنشار، بحاجة لمقص. إحدادون هو جزء من الحديد، فأنا عملت كل شيء مصنوع فيها هو عبارة عن
What a lovely story from East Jerusalem. Now we go to the more serious news of Gaza, and for more on this, we cross over to Rana in our newsroom. Rana.
Thank you so much, Mark. For further analysis, we're joined from Ramallah by Fatah spokesperson Ahmed Fattouh. Very good day, sir. What are the main obstacles preventing a final ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, despite ongoing U.S. brokered talks?
I thank you for having me. Well, unfortunately, we in the Palestinian National Liberation Movement. Sorry?
Said always our pleasure, hello? Sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What are the main obstacles preventing a final ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, despite ongoing U.S. brokered talks?
Yes, until now, there's not enough international pressure over Israel to stop its genocide in Gaza. And also we have to shed the light on Hamas' failure to involve the Palestinian Liberation Organization to carry these negotiations forward and make more pressure within the entire Palestinian factions and political national movements. Until now, that has failed within Hamas, and the United States need to stop these crimes, because we all know that by now that this genocide against the Palestinian people would not have taken place without the unconditional support by United States. And we have to mention the EU, that until now failed to put sanctions or to cut trade deal with Israel. So without an immediate pressure to make negotiation peacefully, not with fire as Netanyahu, the fascist far right, wants.
Sir, how might calls for an international arms embargo and trade sanctions against Israel impact the conflict and global diplomatic efforts as soon as possible, in light of we're supposed to be negotiating now on the ground a ceasefire brokered by the United States, of course, with Egypt and Qatar?
Well, we have to remember that it is Israel who wants the war to continue and refuse peace and the two-state solution. We have to realize that this genocide is not only affecting Gaza, it's also affecting West Bank. And today we have seen that Knesset has issued a decision to annex the West Bank. That is extremely dangerous, that threatens the entire Palestinian national struggle and national liberation. So what we want today is a comprehensive political solution, not only ceasefire and just swap hostages. Of course, immediate ceasefire is much needed and must take place. But it also should not ignore the fact that the Palestinian national goals must be achieved. Israel, until now, we hear from the news there's a pressure. We hear from the United States that they want a ceasefire. We are not involved in these negotiations, unfortunately, because Hamas did not incorporate the Palestinian national movements and the legitimate authority and the Palestinian Liberation Organization. But we have been hearing these news for the past 6 months. Nothing on the ground. What is crippling these negotiations is unknown to us. We still don't understand what is crippling these negotiations. But we know too well that Israel is not willing to go for a peaceful process. And that's what is the pressure needed for, because this is an issue of occupation that we have to touch the root cause of all the issues and the crisis that is affecting not only the Palestinian people, but also the entire region and the world international political arena.
What are the humanitarian strategic implications of Israel's new evacuation orders in Gaza City for civilians and aid agencies, of course, again, in light of there is supposed to be negotiations now for a ceasefire, sir?
Sorry, I didn't hear your question quite clearly.
Okay, my question, sir, is what are the humanitarian and strategic implications of Israel's new evacuation orders in Gaza City for civilians and aid agencies, although we are now discussing a ceasefire in Gaza?
That is the case of the occupation. That's the inhumane, brutal Israeli occupation that continue bombing and killing and shooting at civilians. They just bombed refugee tents. They bombed refugee school, holding refugees and displaced families. They are shooting at aid seekers. So this is what Israel has been doing for the past near 2 years now. Israel does not care about human rights and international law or the negotiations. They want, Netanyahu said it 3 months ago, that he wants negotiations under the fire. And what he wants is an endless fire. Apparently, he does not want to go for peace, because negotiations should take place in a peaceful environment in order to be the first step forward into a more peaceful approach. That is not the case with Israel. And that's why we are demanding for immediate pressure, because apparently the death toll is crazy. We can't continue in that process. And the humanitarian aid, starving a population for more than 3 months now, is a catastrophe for the political scene in 2025. And
it's become a weapon,
that's
sir,
what it demands for the international.
Continue, sir.
Sorry?
I was mentioning that the humanitarian aid has become a weapon that the Israelis use against the Gazans to kill them, because they don't get food, they get killed when they go to eat.
It's becoming a death trap, calling for people to go get aid. Yes, calling for people to go get aid, then get shot at in an open field. That is a very racist, very sadistic crime that requires immediate attention. And I'm actually surprised that the EU is still discussing to cut the trade deal with Israel after all these crimes that we just have witnessed. That is out of reason and logic. It should be taken immediately. Sanctions has been taken immediately against other foreign entity who did occupation. When it comes to Israel, suddenly it needs more revision and more research about it. We ask for the war to be, fair enough and stop this double standards, and to put Israel into its responsibilities as occupying power. Now, our cause is a liberation struggle. It's not only for humanitarian aid, and this plan is to first to humiliate the Palestinian people and to shoot them, and then to turn the Palestinian cause into a humanitarian issue. A humanitarian issue is a result of occupation, so we have to touch the root cause, and that's the occupation. And Israel need to understand a two-state solution is inevitable.
True, sir. Sir, well said and well deserved.
Now we have the international alliance.
How credible and impactful are warnings against organizations like the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in shaping local perceptions and aid delivery, sir?
It is, endangering people's lives. People are very hungry now and starving and are suffering from diseases, from malnutrition, and they really need the food. It's not an option now. So they have to travel huge distance from the north to the south, or from the middle to the south, to get to, if they are lucky, bag of flour, and that is, increasing their suffering and amazing their suffering. There are elders who are unable to walk right now. They are very ill because of the malnutrition. Children are dying. More than 60 child has died because of hunger. 2 million human beings are suffering before our eyes. And this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation are just killing them and shooting them, not failing to provide aid effectively. We have international bodies, the independent international bodies, that are capable to provide aid and deliver it to the hungry people. It's surprising that they are doing this. And that comes in ambitions, the colonial ambitions, to humiliate the Palestinian people, to increase their suffering and push them toward immigration, forceful immigration, for the Israeli colonial ambition of occupying the entire Palestinian land. And just what was announced today by the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, is a testament of this plan when they say also they want to annex the West Bank under the banner of fulfilling the Zionist dream. That is dangerous and need important immediate attention from the entire world to see where Israel is heading. It should stop, must stop. The Palestinian cause, establishing the Palestinian state on 1967 borders, fulfilling the two-state solution is the only way forward. Otherwise, we'll continue in a cycle of violence, and we in Fatah reaffirm that no annexation or liquidation of the Palestinian cause will take place.
All respect, sir, and of course all the Middle East is awaiting, of course, this to stop, as you just mentioned, and hopefully it will stop soon. From Ramallah, that was Fatah spokesperson Ahmed Fatouh. Thank you very much for joining us on Qnews and for your insights and valuable knowledge. And now we go back to Mark Summers in our studio. Mark.
Thank you, Rana. Gaza's there for us in our newsroom. And now for the latest developments on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. President Trump is set to discuss a pause in U.S. weapons deliveries to Ukraine with President Zelensky tomorrow. The Financial Times reports that U.S. President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will speak to address the sudden halt in key American weapons shipments to Kyiv. The suspension prompted Ukraine to summon the acting U.S. envoy, stressing that continued military aid is crucial for countering Russian airstrikes and ground offensives. Ukrainian officials warned that any disruption in support could significantly weaken their defense capabilities.
We gave you military equipment, and you met up ready, but they had to use our military equipment. If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
Ukraine says its drones hit a battery plant in Russia's Lipetsk region overnight, halting production. The Ukrainian military announced that its drone struck battery manufacturing plant in Russia's Lipetsk region during the overnight attack. And in a statement on Telegram, Ukraine said the strikes triggered explosions and forced the facility to stop production. The plant, located in southwestern Russia, reportedly sustained significant damage. The attack is part of Ukraine's ongoing efforts to target critical Russian infrastructure amid intensified fighting. The Kremlin has welcomed Washington's decision to pause some arms shipments to Ukraine, suggesting it may speed up ending the war. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said the U.S. move likely reflects depleted American stockpiles and claimed that reducing supplies would push the conflict towards a resolution. The pause reportedly involves air defense missiles and precision munitions. It comes as Russia intensifies strikes on Ukrainian cities, adding pressure to Kyiv's defenses. French President Emmanuel Macron held a rare 2-hour phone call with Russian President Putin since 2022. The Kremlin confirmed Macron initiated the call, which focused on the war in Ukraine and rising tensions between countries in the Middle East. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov described the conversation as very substantive and emphasized Putin's continued willingness for dialogue. The exchange signals a possible shift in diplomatic channels between Moscow and Paris. Russian artillery and drone strikes have hit multiple regions across Ukraine injuring at least 20 people overnight. In Kherson, artillery fire struck a hospital, wounding 8 people, including patients. Shelling continued Wednesday, including injuries to more civilians in Kharkiv. Drones damaged homes and public sites, while fires in certain areas hurt different people. In one region, it saw heavy attacks on businesses and farms, leaving 5 injured. In Odessa's Ismail district, drones hit port and tourism facilities, but no casualties were reported. Now, at least several people have been shot in a mass shooting in Chicago in the U.S. Victim advocates describe the scene as absolute chaos. A mass shooting in Chicago left a bloody scene as firefighters were seen washing sidewalks near local businesses. A friend of a victim, Pastor Donovan Price, described it as absolute chaos, with people screaming and blood covering the streets. He added that while Chicago sees many shootings, this scale of violence was unprecedented. A heavy police presence was deployed to secure the area as authorities investigate the motive and search for suspects. China has called for unity and a Haitian-led political process to resolve Haiti's ongoing crisis. China's deputy UN envoy Geng Shuang urged Haitian parties on Wednesday to strengthen unity and advance a Haitian-led, Haitian-owned political process to address the country's deepening crisis. Geng also called for strict enforcement of the UN Security Council's arms embargo to stop weapons reaching gangs. He emphasized transforming foreign aid into local development capacity to break Haiti's cycle of poverty and violence. China reaffirmed support for UN agencies and partners as Wildfires are raging in western and southern Turkey, with aircraft and emergency crews battling intense flames near major tourist areas. Firefighters and aerial units are working around the clock to contain large wildfires in Sesmi and Antalya. Helicopters and planes have been dropping water as thick smoke rises, threatening highways and local communities. Emergency workers have been seen battling flames close to residential areas, while tourists and locals watch from nearby roads. Authorities continue to monitor wind conditions as efforts intensify to prevent the fires from spreading further. Pope Leo will spend part of July at Castel Gandolfo, reviving a centuries-old papal tradition and bringing hopes of a tourism boost. Pope Leo plans to spend July 6th to the 20th at Castel Gandolfo, a lakeside town south of Rome, marking the first papal summer stay there in 12 years. Locals hope his visit will revive tourism after the late Pope Francis chose not to vacation outside the Vatican. The historic papal palace has been a summer retreat since the 16th century. Town officials say the Pope's return is already generating excitement and expected economic benefits. News there on the Pope's holidays. Now to a very serious, big story today. The Liverpool forward Diogo Jota and his brother have been killed in a car crash in Spain. The Portuguese Football Federation confirmed the tragic news. The Portuguese Football Federation announced on Thursday that 28-year-old Diogo Jota and his 26-year-old brother were killed in the car accident near Zamora in northwestern Spain. Local authorities said the vehicle veered off the road and burst into flames shortly after midnight. Spanish police have not officially identified the bodies, but indicated it was likely the two brothers. The Federation described their deaths as irreparable loss for Portuguese football. Tragic news for the full world. Now let's get a recap of the. Actually, we'll just finish right here. Have a lovely day, and don't forget you can follow Q News on our social media platforms. So good afternoon.